Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second Wargiven Racing podcast of the day. Earlier this morning, I released my episode talking about the Bahrain Grand Prix. If you are an F1 fan first, IndyCar fan second, I recommend go checking that out now before coming back for this, or staying here and then checking that out later. But just a heads up that this is episode 2 of the day, with some more to come in hopefully a few hours regarding NASCAR and then the sports car races this weekend. But anywho, back to IndyCar. This is the IndyCar racing recap at Texas. So, some track background for the Texas Motor Speedway. It first opened in 1996, with the first IRL race being held the next year in 1997. It is a 1.5 mile oval with 20 degrees of banking in turns 1 and 2 and 24 degrees in turns 3 and 4. Yesterday was the 35th race at the track for IndyCar, or the IRL, and it was the first of five oval races this season for IndyCar. The defending race winners from last year's doubleheader are Scott Dixon and Pato O'Ward. So taking a quick look at the top 10 in yesterday's race, Joseph Newgarden for Team Penske and Chevrolet takes the win in a dramatic finish from Scott McLaughlin, your winner at St. Pete. McLaughlin led the most laps in this race and came home a solid second place, but obviously devastating for him, as you could see when he got out of the car, that he lost this race on the final corner due to circumstances really out of his control. Marcus Ericsson, a quiet third place. He had jumped to the lead for a few laps before the final round of green flag stops, but kind of came out of nowhere and then just was steady in that last 100-lap stint in order to get his first podium of the year. Will Power makes it 3 Penske's in the top 4 again in that crazy restart, the final restart of the race. He jumped out into the lead, saved some fuel, fell back a bit, jumped back out in front again, fell back again, and was never really able to get back up into the front, into that clean air, due to a little bit of different pit strategy, which cost him due to some traffic. Again, really out of his control as a driver, but, again, a solid day, finishing in the top 4 for the second time this season already. Scott Dixon, Mr. Consistency, never really had the pace to challenge, which is odd considering this is Texas, his traditional stomping ground, and in fact was battling with 6th place Jimmy Johnson for the top half, just to get into the top 10. I mean, that's no discredit to Jimmy. He had a fantastic race, his best so far in IndyCar, but Scott Dixon dominates at this track. This is not his favorite track, I'm sure, but this is like the place he wins. If you're going to pick a place for Scott Dixon to win, it'd be here. I know I didn't do a preview video for this due to, unforeseen circumstances that prevented me from having the time to do it, but I would have picked him. I would have picked Scott Dixon as, this was his weekend to really win, and he didn't. Now, that's not saying he won't win. He's Scott Dixon, 6-time champion, lots of race wins. He IndyCar great. He probably will win at some time this year, but at the same time, kind of a disappointing day for him. That's not for his teammate who finished 6th and honestly almost had 5th. I think he got passed on the last lap by Scott Dixon, but we didn't see it because of the battle at the front. Jimmy Johnson, the 7-time Cup champion, second year of IndyCar, first IndyCar oval race, and the man finishes top 6. Now, granted, you had all 4 Andretti cars have some sort of issue. You had Rinus VeeKay, who was rapid, have to fuel save late on. You had Graham Rahal crash out. You had Kyle Kirkwood crash out. Takuma Sato got crashed out. So, that's 8 cars that I think were personally faster than Jimmy. So that drops him down to 14th. But his overall race strategy, 6th place. I mean, well done. More, again, on Jimmy later with the storylines, but just that's my quick thoughts on him for now. Alex Palou, doing the Scott Dixon, just, didn't have winning pace, but he stayed out of trouble, stayed in the top 10 throughout the race, played it safe, came home 7th. And again, this is what championships are built on, is this consistency. Now, he will have to win. He will have to finish top 5, top 3, to win the championship. But again, slowly keeping that consistency at the start of the season really helps. Simon Pagenaud ran slower than I thought. I thought he would be my dark horse pick. I actually had him, I think, finishing 2nd in my fantasy league pick. And sadly, just didn't have the full pace. He was outclassed by his teammate before his teammate got wrecked out. So, I mean, a good day. Obviously, any top 10 is a good day, especially in Meyer Shank, who, granted, Jack Harvey ran well there last year, but had reliability issues, which then caused problems on day 2. So, it's good for Shank that they got into the top 10. Now they need to start pushing for top 5s consistently, especially on ovals that are not the Indianapolis Motor Speedway or with Elio Castroneves. Then again, they have Pagenaud, Indy 500 winner, IndyCar champion. Can't really tell how far they've progressed. But then again, they signed him as a driver, so he must believe in them. So this is a good start after kind of a middling St. Pete. Santino Ferrucci. Oh, Super Sub Santino's back, baby. Top 10 again in the Rahal car. I called for him. I know Santino's divisive for reasons that are extremely complicated, but when it came to picking the third driver for Rahal last year, I chose Santino as my pick. You saw in his results, I think he only had one outside the top 10. Definitely outside the top 15. I think it was at Nashville. But the dude was rapid. The dude is rapid. I mean, in Xfinity, in the second tier of NASCAR, the man was in the top 20 despite never racing Scott cars ever. So he's got raw talent. Someone needs to pick him up. I think he's improved. On the controversy side, we haven't really seen anything since the pandemic, which is, approaching 2 years ago. So he's, I think, relatively stayed out of trouble, put his head down, really worked on his racecraft. I hope he gets a seat and, what I just said doesn't backfire on me. But you got to admit, as a race car driver, man's rapid. Rinus VeeKay had a rocket ship of a car, and they gambled. They gambled that there was going to be a caution with maybe 20 to 30 to go, and they'd be able to fuel save under that and then go flat out. As a single car, I think Rinus was up there with Newgarden and McLaughlin for the fastest car on the day. But overall, with the strategy, again, kind of biting him in the butt, needing to fuel save, 10th place is good. He's got 2 10th places, or 2 top 10s to start the season, which is good, showing signs of what he was last year before his injury. And then he's just got to keep that up. I mean, that's what all these drivers have to do. It's only the second race of the season. But anywho, moving on to the notable moments. Lap 11, caution comes out due to Alexander Rossi's alternator dying and the number 27 Honda being stricken on the side of the road on the backstretch. It's just, Alexander Rossi cannot get a break. At St. Pete, the caution came at legitimately the worst time. And he knew he didn't have the pace to do what everyone else was doing. So he gambled. And it didn't work out. But he had pace. And he had pace at Texas. And then his battery dies. Well, his alternator, which caused his battery to die. It just, what does this man need to do to get a break? Like, the last 2 years have been miserable. This year hasn't really started any better. Does he need to move on from Andretti? Does he need that new scenery to, maybe revitalize himself just a bit? I don't know. And then we get to lap 98. Long green flag run. And this is what saved Jimmy Johnson. He was 19th, about to go a lap down, and this is slightly unfair, I will admit, but I'm going to use it just because it's good to see, progression. Devlin DeFrancesco's first incident of the day. So, as any of you know that watch IndyCar regularly, Texas Motor Speedway, since NASCAR has introduced PJ1, which is a chemical compound that will help the Goodyear tires in NASCAR grip the top lane at Texas better, has been implemented. Texas for IndyCar has been a one-lane track where you have to complete the moves on the straightaway. Due to a special practice session yesterday pushed by, I believe it was Will Power, Power and 6 other drivers drove in the PJ1, at least in the bottom of it. I believe it was at half speed, 3/4 speed, to try to rubber it in with some Firestone rubber to, get the compound to react a bit to that. And it worked. The high lane to an extent was working, but you couldn't go higher than that very high, the highest, which was, I think, you could put half the car on the sticky stuff and you'd be okay. But anymore, you slide up, you lose complete traction. And that's what happened with Devlin incident number 1. The dirty air of the car in front caused Devlin to check up, which forced him to go up the track. And Takuma Sato was riding the outside lane because he was faster than Devlin, but had problems on his green flag pit stop, in which I believe his teammate David Malukas actually stalled coming out of his pit box, which caused Sato to miss his pit box. Sato was running top 3 when that happened, so he was trying to get back up in the front. Maybe a bit of impatience from Sato, but Devlin washed up, made small amount of contact with Sato, but that little amount of contact put him into the not good sticky stuff, and he went up. He hit the wall. He didn't crash. In fact, the Dale Coyne crew was able to get him back on the track. Obviously, much slower and several laps down before ultimately, I believe, after the third incident, retiring the car. That way, he got 20th, I want to say, which is a decent amount of points. So, at least they were able to recover a bit. But again, and NBC, in my opinion, was correct during this incident. It wasn't really Devlin's fault. It wasn't really Takuma's fault. This was a racing incident. That is that. And we move on to the second incident, which is on the lap of the restart after the first incident. Again, I'll talk about, for whatever reason, why these gaps are so long on the next slide. But the second incident, again, right after a restart, 2x2 racing. I don't know the 2 cars in front of Devlin and Kyle Kirkwood, but they were 2 wide in front, and then it was Devlin and Kirkwood 2x2, and both of them got loose. And Devlin made a little bit of contact, and Kirkland hit the wall hard coming out of 4. Fortunately, he seemed like he was okay, but I ruined his pace. He was really rapid to start the race. He was by far the fastest rookie. He was by far going to finish in the top 10. He actually led some laps during the first green flag pit stops and didn't lose too much time during that. A little bit of strategy being in play here. It was the wrong place, the wrong time. Again, this is a racing incident, not really blaming Devlin. He just found himself again washing up, whether that's he wasn't confident, the setup wasn't right, something wasn't wrong with his car, but, who knows if this was caused by something else. But, he washed up, and he was fine. Again, surprisingly lucky, two times he was fine, and Kirkwood was out. Disappointing, but showed his promise. Showed Kirkwood's promise. Shows that, he's a rookie. Kirkwood's got to, learn to back off a little bit. Just a little bit, not too much. If you see 2 wide in front of you, that probably means you shouldn't go 2 wide, especially at Texas. But, yeah, really unfortunate for Kirkwood. Happy he was able to walk out, obviously. And then we come to the third incident, which, again, I'm a big baseball fan, so you get 3 strikes. Devlin had 1, had 2 strikes. And then he does, in this one, by far was his fault. He dives to the inside on this restart, heading into turn 3, inside Graham Rahal, and touches the apron, unsettles his car, wipes up into Rahal. Rahal then is trying to save it, and Elio goes to the top because he sees Graham slowing up because of Devlin, trying to pass, really ambitious on the high side. I mean, it would have worked. But because he had to slow up, check up, because he got up in that sticky stuff that isn't very sticky for IndyCar, he got collected. And so we had 3 cars wiped out, 2 of them which had extremely strong pace. One of them had already been involved in 2 previous incidents. And let's just say Graham Rahal and Elio were not very happy with Devlin. And this is one I fully blame on him. This is a full rookie mistake. While Kirkwood's was partially a rookie mistake. This was a bad move by Devlin. And I'm not saying he was trying to hurt anybody or do anything, but he should know better. Again, you just were involved in 2 incidents. You cannot take them 3 wide going into a corner, especially at Texas, especially at the speeds, especially knowing that outside lane you cannot touch. So extremely poor decision making from Devlin. Again, I'm happy he's okay. I'm happy the other drivers were okay. But his teammates need to sit him down. Well, Rossi and Herta need to sit him down, and to an extent, Pagenaud and Castroneves at Meyer-Shank, and tell him, look, you're a rookie. We appreciate that you're fighting hard. That's good. But you got to learn when to make your moves. For example, St. Pete, Devlin fought to stay ahead of McLaughlin at the very end of the race to finish on the lead lap. That's okay. He wasn't making any dumb dive bombs or dumb moves. This was a dumb dive bomb on an oval at 200 plus miles an hour, which is extremely dangerous. So he's got to learn from this. Again, you get 1 or 2 of these as a rookie before you start getting the hate. And I don't want to, and I'm not saying hate on Devlin, because, he had pace. But yikes, he needs to learn from this. And I hope he does. But this did set up the final 100 laps, which, oh my Lord, I'm relatively new to IndyCar. So I don't remember, and I'm relatively young. I don't remember the glory days of the 2000s IndyCar oval racing. I'm much more used to NASCAR oval racing and F1 racing on road and street courses. IndyCar, again, is still relatively new to me. But oh my God, this final laps was fantastic. I had to stop myself from swearing there. You had VK jumping to lead, McLaughlin leading, Power leading, Newgarden leading, Ericsson leading. You had all these guys leading and going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Engineers telling push, save, push, save. And that's what it was for, 50-some laps until they hit the green flag stops, and then it was more the same. Granted, really only between Newgarden and McLaughlin, but oh my Lord, that restart was insane. Jimmy Johnson made a 2-wide move around, I can't remember who the first driver was, but Scott Dixon. I think it might have been Alex Palou. He went around both of them on the outside in turns 3 and 4. I lost it. In fact, my brother had to tell me to shut up because I was screaming so loud. But it was insane. And then after pit stops, whoa. McLaughlin had it. And this ties into the finish. McLaughlin had it, but then David Malukas pits from the lead on fresh tires, and the relative pace between Malukas on fresh tires and McLaughlin on older tires, even if they were only, I think, maybe 10 laps, Malukas is passing the slower cars, Ed Carpenter, Connor Daly, and the such, Callum Ilott, and McLaughlin is getting dirty air from the slower cars, and then Malukas, who is fast enough to stay on the lead lap. And so this slows up McLaughlin. And here comes Newgarden. And, McLaughlin had worked traffic to a point where with 4 to go, it was looking pretty good for him. And then on the final lap, I don't know who it was in front of him other than Malukas, but they were 2 by 2. And Malukas got past him heading on to the final lap. Out of turns 3 and 4, but McLaughlin hadn't managed to clear the slower car, and he had to check up massively. And this run by Newgarden, he rode the edge. If you watch his onboard, he's on the limit of the PJ1 safe zone. And this man slingshots right around McLaughlin to win. I think it was by 6/100ths of a second. And I saw it coming out of turn 4. Heading into turn 3, I thought McLaughlin had it. And then I was like, oh, there's that lap car. Uh-oh, he's slowing up. Here comes Newgarden. And then out of turn 4, I knew it. The run. If McLaughlin tried to go up, he would have probably severely hurt either him or his teammate. And so I'm glad he stuck to the bottom line. He finished second, which when he pulled onto pit road, he was devastated. Absolutely devastated. Now, obviously, when he walked into victory lane and, shook hands with his teammate, was on the podium, He was happy. He had the second place, but you could tell it affected him that he did not win this race. And he probably should have won this race. But, oh my Lord, that finish was top tier. Anywho, that moves us on to the stats and the storylines. There were 4 cautions for 52 laps. 21% of this race was under caution. IndyCar. I understand being safe. I'm not discouraging safety. But your first caution was 4 laps. It was very good. Now, granted, that was 11 laps into the race. Your second caution took 12 laps. Your third caution also took 12 laps. Your fourth caution also took 12 laps. 36. Oh, that doesn't make any sense. Hold up. I got to recalculate. It was like 15 laps. There we go. That makes more sense. 15, 16 laps for those 3 cautions to get to 52. I understand you have to clean up these cars and sweep the track. But you got to find a way to do it quicker. Because I'm not going to lie, it felt like a NASCAR stage caution. And I kind of lost a bit of interest. But then again, safety's first. So try to find a way to speed it up, but keep the safety. If this is what you need to do to safely sweep up a super speedway mile-and-a-half oval so we can see the great racing, I'm all for it. That being said, let's move on to the next thing. 12 different leaders with 15 lead changes. That may not seem, and I think this lead change is low, honestly, because that third stint, that stint after the final caution, there had to have been at least 5 lead changes. So to me, this feels low. But there was a lot of passing, a lot of stuff in the field, and oh my Lord, did that second lane make the race so much better. This race had more passing for the lead, more leaders, and more passes through the field for position than both races combined from last year. So that shows what just, running this race in March instead of June, and not June, last year was in May. Running it in March instead of May, and then running that second lane in with an extra little bit of practice does. And it was wonderful, which comes into Texas can stay for now. It can. You've been granted a reprieve from being put out to pasture for IndyCar. I saw on Twitter, David Land did his phenomenal job on reporting IndyCar. If you're listening to me and you're not listening to him, don't unsubscribe from me. Don't not listen to me, but go listen to him. He's got the content. He's on the ground. He was at the race after being in Sebring until 11 p.m. the night before. The man's a machine. He's fantastic when it comes to IndyCar content. Highly recommend. Also, if you're from the UK or even the US and you want to hear, an outsider's perspective, Indy Fanatics, great job. They do a great job breaking down, getting driver interviews, and all of that. They are very heavily fan interactive. They're just 2 guys sitting on their couch watching and reacting to these races, and they do a fantastic job. So with the shout-outs out of the way. Texas Motor Speedway should get 1-year contracts if I'm Roger Penske. Because you have to show, one, the crowd was horrible, but that was to be expected. Can you build the crowd back up? Can you keep that second lane open? Because if you can't, you got to leave. And that's why I say 1-year contracts with yearly options. And you just stack the yearly options. You give them crowd criteria, advertising criteria, which is part of marketing, sponsorship reasons. Obviously, XPEL's a Texas company, so you might be able to keep that front money-wise, which is why I don't think they mind not having too many people actually at the track. And then you got to keep that second lane open. You do those 4 things, you're going to have great Texas racing. And we keep another oval on the schedule, which is needed. And then, obviously, Scott McLaughlin almost goes back-to-back. He was 0.06 of a second away from back-to-back. You could tell it hurt him. But then again, man's got a good, solid lead 2 races in, and he's showing that he can do it on different disciplines. Now he's just got to do it on the road courses. He did it at a street course. Now he's got to do it. He's done it at an oval twice. This is his second podium at Texas. Second place at Texas. And I don't know what I'm trying to say. And he, his Australian Supercar days, a lot of street courses, no ovals, but a lot of street courses. So now he's just got to prove he can compete on America's road courses. And then I think he's a legit championship contender. Ganassi, oh my Lord, 4 drivers in the top 10. I never thought I'd say that this year, and maybe except for the Indy 500 with Tony Kanaan being in the top 10 and the other three. Jimmy Johnson is 6th place. Oh, Scott Dixon, again, slightly disappointing. I would have probably switched him and Erickson. But, Ganassi's got to be feeling good. Jimmy's starting to pay off, at least on ovals. And he didn't crash at St. Pete. He was relatively competitive. Erickson's looking like a contender now that he's got a podium on an oval. I would not have predicted that before this year. Pelot's, again, a top 10 finish. Dixon's Dixon, so he's going to be there. Ganassi's probably the organization I want to be at right now. Penske obviously started this year out super strong, but they haven't had the pace overall the last two seasons particularly, even though Joseph finished second last year. But they've got to prove that they're back. And I mean back in the terms that, they're competing for championships with multiple drivers. Because to me, that's what Penske has to be doing in IndyCar. They're Penske. They don't get a break in IndyCar. They get a pass in NASCAR. They don't get a pass in IndyCar. Anywho, the other super organization, Andretti. Oh, my Lord, what a horrible day. You've got Rossi's battery dying on lap 11. You've got Devlin DeFrancesco being involved in 3 different incidents before he finally gets wrecked out in the third one, which was his fault. You have Roman Grosjean have an engine problem, I think it was lap 92-ish, that caused him to retire. And Colton Herta couldn't get enough fuel in the stinking car to run competitively in the final stint. You saw he'd even finished the top 10. Man was making moves in the early parts of the race. And this is the second race in a row where Colton Herta has not been able to get a full fuel tank during the race. During the most important stop of the race, the final one. So they've got to figure out their crap. And I think they will. I still back Colton. If he could finish, I think he finished 11th and he finished 7th, 5th or 7th at St. Pete. If he could do that when he can't even push, dude's going to win the championship hands down when Andretti stops screwing around. McLaren, horrible day. Rosenqvist on pole. Pato wasn't really there in qualifying, but he was making moves early on in the race. And then they have horrid pit stops. I think Rosenqvist overshot his box a little bit. Pato hit one of his crew members, and thank God he's okay. I mean, I know that happens. That's part of IndyCar. There's a risk of that happening. Those crew members know. But, dude. And I'm pretty sure he still changed the damn tire. Like, impressive. He just got hit with a car, and he's still... I'm pretty sure he did. But, again, you can't be doing that. And that cost him to go a lap down. Well, not that. The penalty he had to serve after that caused him to go a lap down. Fortunately, again, his crew member's okay. And then Rosenqvist's nightmare got worse where he had a mechanical issue, had to retire the car. I mean, and then F1 McLaren, also horrid. So McLaren just had a bad day. As I mentioned earlier, Super Sub Santino, a top 19. God, always with one typo. Top 10. Man got a call Saturday night because Jack Harvey had a crash in the second practice session. It was a hard hit. He got a concussion. I wish Jack Harvey all the best in his recovery so that we could see him at Long Beach. Concussions are no joke. I'm happy Ray Hall took the time to make sure that he was evaluated properly rather than ignoring it and putting him in the car for an oval race at those speeds. So, I wish all the best to Jack Harvey, that he gets better and that he can recover from this concussion. Because, again, no joke. These drivers, put their lives on the line every time they step in a car, and especially so at these ovals. And so I hope that, he has a full recovery and we can see him back at Long Beach. But Santino, to get 6 laps in the car before the race and then start at the back at Texas, where it's very hard to pass, and then finish in the top 10, even with, I think, 8 cars retiring. Wow. And like I mentioned, if he could stay out of trouble, out of racing, man's going to get a seat. He's going to get a good seat. And I think he deserves it based on his racecraft. Other stuff, maybe not, but his racecraft, certainly. And I look forward to seeing him in person at the 500. I think without a doubt he's going to make that show unless he has a mechanical problem in qualifying. And we get on to the thing I've been ready to say, Jimmy! Which, again, if you've watched Indy Fanatics, they do that all the time with Pato O'Ward and Alex Palou. I wanted to say that. May have just upset the upstairs neighbors. Oh, well. Jimmy Johnson, who had more laps at Texas Motor Speedway than the rest of the top 5 in the field combined, finished 6th in an IndyCar race in his first oval race. Wow. Just wow. And, I honestly thought he'd be running top 20, and a great race would be top 10. Now, again, granted, about, I'd say, 8 cars that were faster than him retired. All the cars that retired, honestly, were faster than him. But he stayed out of trouble. He made moves, like risky moves on the high side, and he fought a clean battle. Didn't screw up his strategy. Didn't screw up pitting. I think this could jumpstart Jimmy Johnson. Now, it could go all horribly wrong at Long Beach because that's a street circuit, and I'm still not convinced that he can race there competitively. But if he could take this and build on it, going into Indy, where he ran pretty well last year at the Indy Road Course, and where if he uses his oval knowledge at Indianapolis and NASCAR to help him learn and get through, IndyCar practice, and with that much practice, if this man in half of an IndyCar race can learn how to use the second line that really only person he saw using was Graham Rahal, who then wrecked out using that second line because of Devlin DeFrancesco's move, he's going to be a threat at the Indy 500. Another reason why I'm just thrilled to go to that race, beyond all the other reasons. I thought I would just be like, wow, I'm seeing Jimmy Johnson's probably one and only Indy 500. I don't know. If he keeps this pace up, especially on ovals, the man is at least going to have a seat for that. And, whew, that'd be exciting. And then we move on to the final storyline. The rookies. They had a rough day. Well, a rough day or a slow day. Kyle Kirkwood had pace. DeFrancesco had pretty decent pace. Malukas at the end had pace. Callum Ilott had, a steady race. Didn't get in any trouble. And, who's the other rookie I'm forgetting about? Oh, Christian Lundgaard. He had a wobble. Ugh, it was quite close, but like Ilott, kind of ran a solid race. Those with pace actually crashed out. And, that's just being a rookie. This was Roman Grosjean's first time on a super speedway. So I consider him a rookie for this race. Jimmy Johnson too, but I already talked about him. Grosjean ran well. Not used to it, obviously. He complained about being not able to pass, but that's not surprising considering he's not used to this style of racing where he's got to draft up, he's got to make the move around the side, but he was racy. He was quick. Top 15, easily. Again, Kirkwood would have been top 10. Malukas almost got a top 10, but he was really top 20, top 15 on pace. Christian Lundgaard and Callum Ilott just did a good job finishing the race. And, that's all you can take. But again, this rookie battle is just, it's going to be nuts. It's going to be a battle down to the wire because Kirkwood, rapid, single lap, rapid on ovals, but makes more mistakes, at least on ovals so far. Malukas made the mistake at St. Pete. Malukas is my pick to win Rookie of the Year. And he could if he keeps doing what he did today, which he stayed out of trouble. So it's going to be fascinating to watch, in my opinion. And then the final thing, Tatiana Calderon didn't race today because she's contracted only for road and street courses. That's why I have not talked about her. I'm not ignoring her. J.R. Hildebrand did a pretty good job, hopping in for his first race of the year, staying out of trouble, and coming home solid for A.J. Foyt. but nothing spectacular. But I do expect him to run well at the 500, which is his next race, since he's running only the ovals. Anywho, now moving on to the point standings, we've got Scott McLaughlin, 28 points up on Will Power, with 97 points and his two podiums, his one win and two podiums. Power is second on 69. Pelot third on 67. Joseph Newgarden jumpstarts his season with that win, putting him up from 17th to 4th on 65 points. Marcus Ericsson with his two top 10s gets 58 points and stays in 5th, or actually moves up to 5th. Scott Dixon, Rinus VeeKay, Colin Herta, Simon Pagenaud, Roman Grosjean round out the top 10, with Jimmy Johnson being tied with Grosjean, which I never thought I'd be saying when it comes to points in IndyCar. The only rookie so far in the top 15 is Christian Lundgaard, and it's looking like Pato's challenge to the title is almost over. Obviously, anything can change. A win is 50 points. The Indy 500 is 100 points. But he would need to win the 500, or McLaughlin would need to, I think, probably retire twice from the race to have a serious chance for Pato getting back in it. And that's not even counting Power, Pelot, Newgarden not having problems or not winning races. So Scotty McLaughlin, good position to start the season, but he's got to keep going at it. And it's going to be interesting to see, how that gap changes. Can he keep the pressure on? Honestly, I think Will Power, Joseph Newgarden are dangerous right now. They're chasing. They're the chasers of their teammate. They don't have to deal with the pressure of being chased, which if I was a driver, I'd prefer to chase than to be chased. But then again, great start to the beginning of the season for Scott McLaughlin. Let's see how that pans out. Moving on to the final thing. Again, my fun little thing, IndyCar standings using the CART point system of 2003. Scott McLaughlin has a 13-point lead here, still over Power, with Pelot, Newgarden, Ericsson remaining the same top 5. Dixon also remains the same. Let's see. Is Herta is in 8th. Herta and Rinus switch. Grosjean and Jimmy up into 9th and 10th. Pagenaud, because he didn't finish in the points in the first race, is in 12th here. And then only 18 drivers have scored points so far, with Rosenqvist scoring a point because he won the pole this weekend. So that wraps it up for IndyCar at Texas. Will this be the last Texas race? Will we return to it next year? Who knows? I hope we return to it next year. This also, like I mentioned earlier, is the second episode of the day. Feel free to check out the earlier F1 podcast, and then the upcoming NASCAR podcast and sports car racing recap podcasts that should be up on the channel soon. I appreciate all the support. Again, like, subscribe, comment on how you think Texas went for IndyCar, what your predictions going forward are, things you'd like to see covered by my channel going into the Long Beach Grand Prix for IndyCar in April. Another 2-3 week break. Roger, you're killing me, man. Shorten these breaks, especially early in the season. But anywho, another fantastic race. The race I enjoyed the most yesterday of the 3. And I'm looking forward to Long Beach. With that being said, enjoy the racing. Keep watching the racing. And